Good morning, Southern Illinois. This is George Goodman live podcast for Southern Illinois residents. Hope that everybody had a great Father's Day, and I hope that everybody had a great weekend in general. All right, so let's go ahead and jump in. As you are aware, the legislature is off session right now. They probably come back in October, whatever. Um, One quick note. Remember, I said on that digital taxing that the companies who that affected would do something about it. So I heard that FanDuel and what's the other one? DraftKings. Okay. They're having to absorb those costs. They're supposed to make, supposedly, it's projected $20 million. However, um, it may have to go through court. And they're also saying that sports betting will probably change, and the people who are participating will see the fees in different ways so that the company will not absorb the changes that the legislature made. Okay, so between Democrats and Republicans, I was curious to what both sides are saying because in Illinois, as you are aware, we normally just hear the Democrats uh, talking. The Republicans are a little bit silent. They're trying, but like I keep telling you, without money to get on the air, you're pretty much out there. So what they're talking about, and you can say that they are the typical ones that they've been talking about the whole year: taxation, budget spending, and the cost of living. So, as you are aware, that Republicans are um, complaining politically that there was a record breaking $56 billion state budget. And I told you that was a $900 million increase. And when I segue with talking about how they're going to tax digital media, meaning FanDuel's, DraftKings, YouTube, all of those types of funds. And I'll tell you how some of those numbers break down here in a little bit. Okay. And they say, meaning the Republicans say, that it's pointing to ballooning pension obligations and asserting that the spending is unsustainable and places too much of a heavy burden on taxpayers. So that was the second thing. And so state spending and budgeting comes back to they're still paying for pensions. I actually agree that we should be paying for pensions and maybe find the money somewhere else. So don't get confused that I agree on somehow taking the money away from pensions, but the spending itself is unsustainable. And of course, I think Illinois is leading the country in spending, or at least a fourth of the fifth more popular with them uh, with these huge budgets. Taxes and affordability, high cost of living, which we've been talking about since the season started for the midterms. So, Democrats are focused on raising revenues, such as they were trying to tax on potential tax on millionaires. Remember the millionaires tax failed this year, but I would tell you, if I had to guess, it'll be back on the agenda for next year, and probably they're talking right now about how they can get people to get on board with it. One of the things that I've noticed is um, when you say millionaires tax, they don't really talk about who they're talking about. And I've told you before, and I stand by this, and this is my opinion. It depends. Is it money in the bank or how much you're worth? Because remember, as we've gotten older and worked our butts off, we have 401ks. So if they count that as your income, that adds a lot more people to the millionaire's tax. And although they currently are only talking about rich business people, I guess, so to get you to like buy into it. But remember, it's always in the details. So, Republicans advocate for comprehensive tax relief, like eliminating taxes on tips and overtime to stimulate the business climate. Okay, well, it worked nationally, so maybe you decide if it's good or not. Um, but getting back to taxes and affordability, I've been foot stomping this, and this is my opinion, which I don't normally say. Next fiscal year after the election, watch out because there's going to be shortfalls. And the reason is because the new taxes may not bring in the amounts that they are talking about. And I would submit to you to think about why they went after digital assets versus one of them saying, well, people who are working are going to have to pay more. Well, let's see because they want to get reelected. Now, another big one that doesn't get talked about a lot is energy policy. Democrat prioritize clean energy and having passed major climate and data center regulations to protect water and the power grid. Okay, so let's remember something too. I submit to you to go and look at how some other states are addressing these issues. Now, when they did that, they, meaning the legislature and the governor, have um, set it up so that with our nuclear power plants, yes, I'm talking about nuclear power plants again, we can't make any money off of it. We can't make any money if we are exporting coal or any other natural energy sources because of the regulation. And thus, we're not generating any income for the state besides taxing others, taxing the internet and digital and individual people who are working through the income tax. All right. So Republicans view it social and healthcare issues, right? So they're talking about we need to look at who is getting the social and healthcare things. So that points to people being in the country illegally, people who are able-bodied who just aren't working, etc. So that's what they're pointing to, and that's different than energy policy. I kind of put those together when I shouldn't have. I apologize. Um, so the energy policy is what I just said for the Republicans, that they want to utilize the natural resources and to get money for the state, because the more money that you have coming into the state, the less that you have to tax individual people and businesses. Because if you go back to the taxes and affordability, they were looking at taxing uh, corporations with a certain amount of people making a certain amount of money to raise money. And also, the under the energy policy, they want to protect water and power grids. Okay, so if they want to do that, 2 years ago, they passed that the utilities and the water companies could raise rates so that they could fix their infrastructure to support more. Now they're saying that they want to regulate data centers this way too. Again, data centers, whoever owns them, they are going to have to consider all of these things, because when you have a data center, it's basically server farms, routers, switches, stuff like that. And it needs to be cooled. There needs to be water systems that regulate the temperature and stuff like that. But that's the price of doing business. Like I told you months ago, when you write a contract for this stuff, that's included. You don't have to pass a law to get them to do that. So they are actually the legislature in Illinois is actually siding with the water and the energy companies to pass on these costs to individuals by saying or blaming the data centers are taking up too much energy and you're paying for it, which is not true. So you decide, but those are the top issues going on between Democrats and Republicans in the state. I also wanted to talk about how much money we were spending. Um, hmm. Well, I think I will have to talk about that on Friday because I don't have it available. I apologize. I think that I had pulled it up and then I put it back. Oh, before I leave, so I went out to the Republican webpage for the Republican Party. And I'll tell you, I was surprised. What they have on the webpage, uh, they have a couple of things, but it's like um, a couple of blurbs about affordability, et cetera. Uh, One of them was talking about a fish fry and stuff like that. But then there was one person who's in the state legislature who I wanted to highlight, who was talking about what's going on in Illinois. So don't need to say who it is, but I liked what they did. So, first of all, they talked about the record spending. And what I like is they break down the numbers like 55.9 billion, largest budget in Illinois history, 700 million increase in spending since last fiscal year, 15.8 billion spending has grown under Governor Pritzker. Now, you would think that candidates running for state office will be highlighting this, including the Attorney General, the Secretary of State, all of those. So maybe they need to think about changing the way that they campaign. 800 million in new taxes, increasing the corporate tax of 300 million, new social media tax, 200 million, 140 million digital advertising tax, right? So anytime that you're on YouTube, whenever you look to the right or to the left or before you watch a video, that's what they're talking about. These digital advertising taxes that the state put on people to advertise, which will trickle down to you. 60 million in cryptocurrency transaction tax. So if you want to kill cryptocurrency, you tax it, right? Now, these are estimated numbers that the legislature and the governor put out. So this person just used those numbers. But if you add it up, it's only maybe 700 million, maybe. And this is projected. So I like that. And the whole reason I mention this is because on the Republican uh, Party website, they should have that out there in big numbers so that people will want to know more. So if anybody is listening from the Republican Party, the state party, please look at changing your website to get some interest. Because if you have 300,000, 400,000 people hitting your website. They're interested in your views. So that's some free advice that probably only you and the people who listen to my podcast will hear. So have a great day. Have a great week. And we will talk to you again on Friday.